What's up? Hello, everyone. We've got Cookie here. Oh, yeah, we got a cookster. Y'all see her? Cookie wants to watch and listen. All right, let's get set up for the stream, everyone. Got my live now links posting. Had a pretty easy Monday. I got off around 2 o'clock instead of like 4 or 5, So, today I'm going to talk some movies. I'm catching up on all the movies I've been watching the past couple months, and I am so behind. I finally did a movie stream last week talking about the movies I watched in August. I reviewed 16 films. I'll edit that down and post it to YouTube. The live version is up on my channel. Oh, God, I'm burping. I'm also going to start a couple new books today. We've got one about mass incarceration, The Warehouse, a visual primer on mass incarceration. Got this one called Marks at the Arcade, Consoles, Controllers, and Class Struggle by Jamie Woodcock. So we got some guys. I'm anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, variety streamer, and this is I like talking about how what is the empire up to? The United States. How is it oppressing the people? Got to keep people informed on that stuff. So, um, and then got to talk video games because can't get too off track. I bleed followers and viewers when I don't talk about games and movies because my name is Game.Film. So it's hard to blend politics and stuff with the movies and games, but I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. Talking movies I've been watching, starting in a few news headlines. All right, posting on X and Blue Sky that I'm live. Starting 2 new books. A few news headlines. All right, so there we go there. All right, so what I want to do first, y'all, is let's get this going. Hey, there we go. So, all right, so I talked September movies last time. I talked 16 movies. Now we're going to talk about what I watched in October of 2025. How's my mic volume, guys? Let's see. I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 movies in October 2025. So, if you guys are new here, I'm definitely I love action adventure. I love horror movies. I love low budget movies. Um, maybe not total where it's like super low budget, but just try to support the lower independent studios and not the big Marvel movies, Disney. I try not to watch too many of those, the big blockbusters, just because you got to support the lesser known, man. It's hard for them to get distribution and stuff. So, but I try and watch more horror movies than usual in October. But I think I had a little bit of everything. So let's talk about what I watched in October of last year. So the first film I watched in October is Once Upon a Time in China. Guys, I'm a big Hong Kong cinema fan. As you can see, I got Kung Fu Hustle back there. Favorite actress is Maggie Chung, Tung Yu. And I got the Hero poster up there. One of my favorite films. So definitely like the Hong Kong movies. I like martial arts. But this is released in 1991, directed by Choi Hark. He is one of the legends of Hong Kong cinema, guys. So it's starring Jet Li, Win Biao, Jackie Chung, Rosamund Kwong, and Kent Chung. And guys, take a look at this. Stunts were when Wu Ping was involved. so you know it's gonna be a banger. Wen Wu Ping is one of the greatest stunt fight choreographers ever. He did the so good the Hollywood got him to do the Matrix films. So, um, guys, you got Choi Hark and Jet Li and Win Biao together. Um, Outstanding martial arts. I think Hong Kong comedy is kind of tough sometimes because I don't get the jokes. But I think I did laugh in this one more often than not. So that was a bonus. But you get a little bit of Chinese history as well. So the plot kept me engaged. Sometimes I'm just begging for the action, but the plot was pretty good. So I gave this one 4.5 stars out of 5. You guys want a banger martial arts action film? Check out Once Upon a Time in China. So, second film I watched was The Evil Dead. This is released in 1981, directed by Sam Raimi, and this had a hellish filming experience, guys. Let me do the cast: Bruce Campbell, Ellen Sandweiss, Richard DeManicore, Betsy Baker, and more. But yeah, man, really torturous. I listened to a few podcasts, man, and the making of this was pretty gnarly. They went through hell to make this movie. So, I'm curious what y'all think of that tree scene. I don't know if that's aged well, man. Like, was that really necessary to be assaulted by a tree, man? It was kind of like, I don't know. I guess they're trying to make it scary or something. But I mean, this is low budget filmmaking at its finest. I rate this one 5 stars out of 5. The practical effects are amazing. Sam Raimi knows how to do movie magic. There's a lot of tricks he does with the camera and editing that it's like, wow, how did he do that on a very low budget? So it's an all-timer, guys. Gotta rate it 5 stars out of 5. And it's scary too, man, when they're like, we're gonna get you, not another peep. That is scary. So I give that's an all-timer, man. So Evil Dead 2 was the third film I watched. This was released in 1987 by Raimi, starring Bruce Campbell, Sarah Berry, Dan Hicks, Ted Raimi, I think that's his brother, Casey De Paiva. I gave this one 5 stars out of 5 again. So it's kind of like a unofficial. It's like a sequel, but it's like not related plot wise. It's kind of like its own movie. It kind of just has the same stuff, out in the cabin in the woods. But you've got more movie magic by Sam Raimi, and he ratchets it up even more. So although it's kind of the same premise, I mean, everything's like just as good, if not better. Bruce Campbell shows how he can do physical comedy, and he's just a good comedic actor in general. He really shines here. I think he's better in the sequel than the first film. So 5 stars out of 5 for Evil Dead 2, guys. 5 is the max score I give out here. Return to the Living Dead 3, guys. This is directed by Brian Yuzna. Released in 1993. Starring Melinda Clarke, J. Trevor Edmond, Kent McCord, Sarah Douglas, James T. Callahan, and more. But, yeah, dude, this is pretty low budget. And, I think the zombies look pretty cool. Or the living dead, as you say. And I gave this one 3.5 stars out of 5. I think Melinda Clarke is probably the star here. I don't know, this guy never gives up on her, even though she's like, look at her, dude, she's totally jacked up. But I think for the budget, what they were able to do with the low budget, and like the kills in this one were pretty gnarly. They come across this Latino gang, and like, man, she picks them off one by one. And yeah, so solid story. You got a little bit of a romantic angle in there. Thought that was cool. And yeah, man, 3.5 stars out of 5. I totally skipped Return of the Living Dead 2 because I heard that one was ass. Not watching that. So next film I watched, I like crime movies, guys. I got a crime film recommendation right here. This is released in 1973, directed by John Flynn, starring Robert Duvall, rest in peace, Karen Black, Joe Don Baker, Robert Ryan. So this is I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Um, it's kind of, you can call it a revenge movie as well, because Robert Duvall's brother, I think, gets killed, I believe, by a mob outfit, and he teams up with his buddy Joe Don Baker, and they go ripping off the crime syndicate. They pull multiple jobs, man, and just seeing them ripping off dudes on the run, and you get a great shootout at the end. A couple great shootouts actually, a couple good ones. But I like when Robert Duvall calls the guy "you cracker asshole" with a shotgun. He has like a little accent too. It's pretty cool. So 4 stars out of 5, y'all. Check out The Outfit. Good crime movie right there. So I try to go to the movie theaters often. Did I watch this in the theaters? I feel like I did. I think I gave this immaculate 1 star. Boo hiss, boo hiss. Directed by Michael Mohan, released 2024. Starring Sydney Sweeney, Alvaro Morte, Simona Tabasco, Benedetta Borcaroli. Sorry, I just butchered everything there. But man, Sydney Sweeney is just here as like a sexual object. The more the film goes on, they show like a little bit more skin, a little bit more side boob than usual. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the scares are just like, she walks around a corner. What's around the corner? Oh, jump scare. You know what I mean? I did not like this movie at all. Almost gave it the worst review possible. So, and when gore does happen, it's just for shock value. I hate that shit, man. So, immaculate, boo hoo. 2 thumbs down, mother sucker. I don't like that at all. So, Halloween, I never seen the reboot, so I decided I should have went with the Rob Zombie one first, but I did the David Gordon Green 2018 Halloween. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. It starts off horribly. There's a couple or 2 people there that want to interview Michael, and like he's like, Michael, and he's like he holds up his mask, and it like cuts to credits to start the movie. It's super awkward and stupid, but the movie recovers. I found it pretty entertaining. The body count is high, which is a little strange. I feel like he's killing for a little too much, You got to stalk and get your kills one by one. He goes a little like house to house. He gets a little crazy there. So, but I mean, it is a Halloween movie. You want carnage, right? So, but I forgot to say the cast: Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, Andy Machiak, James Jude Courtney, Nick Castle as the Shape, they call it. Will Patton. We like Will Patton. Man, I wish I had more to say about this, but I was entertained, guys. The kills were pretty fast and swift. It wasn't like gore porn, so that's the way I like my kills, by the way. So we got the Rob Zombie 2007 Halloween movie right here, starring Malcolm McDowell, Sherry Moon Zombie, Tyler Mane, Scout Taylor Compton, Brad Dourif, Danielle Harris, what's up? Scream Queen, William Forsythe, Danny Trejo, Sid Haig, rest in peace, is also in this. That's cool. Danny Trejo has a pretty memorable performance in this. I gave this one 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed the backstory, how he came to be. So, really enjoyed showing how they started as a kid, man, how he became effed up. His parents were a little, I don't know what's with Rob Zombie and showing like destitute white families. I feel like that's a shtick, but And then yeah, man, it goes. It just feels pretty fresh and more original than the David Gordon Green one. So all right, guys, one battle after another. Saw this one in theaters. You know, when I saw it, man, I was pretty thrilled. I was like, wow, this is a 5-star film. But then I kept thinking about it and listening to podcasts and fuck this movie, man. It's not gonna age well. It's to me it's anti-black, anti-revolutionary. But I had to downgrade it to 2 stars because it wasn't a waste of time. You know, I was thrilled, but I'm sick of movies like not really saying much. You know, um, they make two of the main black characters rats, and then they just throw them away completely. Um, she falls into the arm of a white guy. I know, like he's incompetent, but it's like look at the poster, man. Fucking DiCaprio. To me, it's a white savior fucking movie, and I don't know, man. I'm just Are you gonna really want to do a revolutionary act after seeing this movie? No. This is Hollywood, man. So and overrated. 2 stars out of 5 for one battle after another. Let's go to the next film. Insidious. 2 stars out of 5. Man, I just kept. I had to stop and start this like 3 times, man. Um, this is directed by James Wan, 2010, starring Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, Lynn Shay, Ty Simpkins. But I don't know, man. It just doesn't slap for me. Does not slap. I will give the ending some credit there. Kind of faked me out, but not really my cup of tea, man. Not my cup of tea. Didn't like that one. Time Crimes. You guys looking for a time travel movie? I think this is from Spain. Directed by Nacho Vigalondo. Released in 2007. Starring Cara El Holiday, Candela Fernandez, Barbara Gonaga, and Nacho Vigalondo himself. I give this one 3.5 out of 5. It's one of the easier time travel movies to follow. I find that they make up the rules so much in time travel movies, it doesn't make sense, but fairly easy to follow, man. It does keep you guessing, obviously, but yeah, man. So this guy really kind of freaked me out with that. Look what he's doing, man, with this little bandages on his face. So you want a good time travel movie? Check out Time Crimes, man. 3.5 stars out of 5. So that's October. Next up is gonna be November. I'm catching up, y'all. I'm being a good content creator. Trying my best. We'll be caught up to March and April in no time. So, bam, there you go. That was what I watched in October of 2025. So, that's it for the movie review section of today's stream. Got in a good session there for about 15 minutes. How's my cat doing? Cat is still there. So what I'm gonna do next, guys? I like bookmarking stuff on social media, and so I can come back and talk about it. I just want to talk a little shizit, talk a little schmack, just rant a little bit on what's going on out there. So let's rant about some news headlines, guys. These bookmarks are maybe like 1 to 2 months old, so I'm getting to the now. So let's talk about it. So this is from Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL National. I like how they make this graphic right here. Trump becomes first president to bomb 8 countries in 1 year. Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Palestine, Yemen, Venezuela, Syria, and Somalia. So he ran on being a peace president, guys, and he wasn't one in his first term. He kept AFRICOM. He was drone striking, just like Obama was. He ratcheted that thing up, man. You think Obama? He killed what 90% civilian casualty rate, Obama, and then Trump just kept that pedal to the metal, guys, as far as drone strikes are concerned. And if you guys, I can't believe y'all, Trump pulled an Obama on his first term, y'all. And look what he's doing. I don't know if you're still supporting him now. It's like, what's the deal, man? So he's keeping that $1 trillion Pentagon budget right on schedule, y'all. So just wanted to talk about that real quick. Let's see. So Venezuela, Trump is ratcheting up regime change. And let's see here. Let me refresh this so you can. The U.S. bombed a medical dialysis warehouse in La Guaira, Venezuela during Saturday's attack. This is about 2 months ago. Let's get some audio. Well, I guess there's no audio. Building stored tons of critical medicine and supplies. Disrupted care for at least 9,000 patients undergoing kidney disease treatments. Man, that's loud in my ear. In response, the government of Brazil would send aid as well. So this is a war crime, y'all. This is a war crime. And if you guys don't remember, in previous streams, I talked about how this started happening decades ago, but really ramped up during Trump's first presidency. He enacted sanctions and killed 40,000 Venezuelans because of his sanctions during his first term as president, y'all. You can Google Matthew Heath. He was a CIA agent that got caught with explosives on a boat, and he was going to blow up an oil refinery. So this he's continuing doing work for the empire, dude. So Donald Trump is a war criminal and a half. So, and then I like this video by Mohammed Hadid, and I like how this is from Mint Press News as well, the footage. Trump says, "We're going to run Venezuela to make sure it's run properly. Like, we're going to take over that country. We're going to do regime change." But this is the country he's supposed to be running. Let's take a look here. I mean, this is Los Angeles, California, y'all. What is Trump doing to house the homeless? Is he putting food on the table? What's going on? So, I mean, this is just sad, dude. People point at Cuba or like North Korea or whatever, Nicaragua. They point at Venezuela. But like, look at what's happening here at home, man. I think this might be Skid Row. Jeez, man, it's just normal to see people sleeping. Are they freaking dead, you know? It's like, damn. It's pretty brave to be walking around there. I wouldn't be. But anyways, just reminding y'all where our tax dollars are going to war. Can't feed the poor, man. I'm sure y'all have heard that expression before. Let's see. What else did I want to read? I found this one interesting. This is from the Muslim Journalist News Network. Iranian police said they have arrested a man in Tehran, whom they identified as working for Israel's intelligence agency Mossad, amid protests in the capital and several other provinces. So, if you guys remember, Mike Pompeo, I think he was the CIA director in Trump's first term, but he was on Twitter saying, like, yeah, we've got Mossad on the ground in Iran, so let's do this. So, I don't know. I'm not praising the Ayatollah or Iran's president or whatever, their government. I'm just saying that the Zionist United States and the West, they want to carve Iran up so bad, and they've been destabilizing that country. So you can't just pin it all down on Iran's president, okay? So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. All right, here's a couple of posts I want to read. So Renee Good was executed or murdered by ICE agents. And here's some reactions that I want to read. At some point, liberals are going to have to understand a genocide in Palestine, regime change, and an invasion in Venezuela, and a woman shot 3 times point blank by ICE is all interconnected by the same pathology of violence. But instead, they vote for strongly worded letters and polite fascism. Let me see, not that one. There was a couple ones I want to read. So an ICE agent killed an American woman for no reason. This is what Israel does to Palestinians living in the West Bank on the daily. Sorry, Americans, the terrorism your country supports with your tax dollars is finally coming back to you. It's called the Imperial Boomerang. So, a friend of mine, Fiorella Isabel, she says, what's happening overseas is happening over here. Okay, like all that violence that we're funding, all the right wing extremists we fund to destabilize countries, all that outflow of it comes back here, man. Like Israel, Mossad trains our police forces. Okay, so let me keep reading here. Liberals will never beat the allegations. There were daily mass protests under the Biden administration, including for the following reasons: ICE, genocide in Gaza, Cop City. At this point, some of you just need to admit you are too comfortable with status quo and only pay attention when there's a figurehead like Trump who is easy to oppose. So, guys, people are like, this is Trump's ICE. This is Trump's America. I told you guys what would happen. We should have voted Democrat, but it's like, dude, what the fuck? When Biden and Harris last term, they were cracking skulls all across the country, cracking heads open. Not only they did a genocide or Holocaust in Gaza, but it's like all the students getting suspended, their heads busted open on campuses for politely protesting. What's the word I'm looking for? But like, shit was out of control when Biden and Harris were in office, man. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Let me keep going. There's a couple more I want to read from here. Ah, yes. In case you didn't know, ICE killed at least 32 people in 2025. They just weren't white people, and they weren't caught on video. You're not mad enough. That's a good one. The Israeli occupation force literally trains ICE agents. You can trace a direct line from a woman being shot point blank in the street to the indiscriminate killing and bombing in Gaza. Not much of a single one-off issue. It's sort of indicative of the entire issue. Yep. ICE and the IDF don't allow medical professionals to treat dying people. Remember they shot Renee Good and then they held the ambulance for coming in? Same thing they do in Gaza. Same thing. Let me see. I think that's it. For from this post. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to read from there. This is your reminder that the Democrats have increased funding for ICE each and every term they have been in power. Don't forget that, y'all. Don't forget. Okay. All right, here's another post I wanted to read. There's multiple posts in this one. This isn't Cuba, nor Venezuela, nor North Korea, Iran, countries where, according to Western media, human rights violations occur daily. This is Arkansas in the United States, where 3 police officers beat a defenseless citizen in this way. Look at that, man. That's crazy. That's just, look at them, man. This is why I don't vote for Democrats or Republicans, guys. Kamala she was the most, and Biden, they're like the most pro-cop candidates in history. They're totally okay with this. Okay? Same, AOC ain't gonna stop that. Let me see. What else did I want to read from this one? Oh, yeah, AOC's back on her stuff. Hey, so marching into a predominantly Jewish neighborhood and leading with a chant saying we support Hamas is discussing anti-Semitic things to do. Pretty basic. So, guys, Hamas are resistance fighters. They're defending themselves from 75 years of occupation, colonizers, terrorism by Zionists in Israel. Yes, we support Hamas, dude, and she won't say that. So, AOCIA at it again. She needs to, as this guy says, shut the fuck up. I can't stand her, dude. She's just there to Latinos working for ICE be like. That's actually pretty good. No, I didn't want to read that one. White tears are not helpful. I think that's all I wanted to read on that one. Oh yeah, remember Erica Kirk, dude? She just went right to being. All right, here's a good video. This is by Heinz Call. This account. Let's watch this one. This is what we've been talking about. Okay, Palestine and the USA getting shot by rubber bullets. We're talking about the Imperial Boomerang, right? What happens overseas comes back here. Chickens are coming home to roost, guys. Renee Good getting shot. Hopefully I don't get banned showing violence on the video, but these are just news headlines. Look at this, man. Gaza is a weapons testing facility. Testing that shit over there, they're going to test it over here. Technology that will eventually be used against us all. Minneapolis, Minnesota right there. Just dragging people, beating people, man. Damn, look at that, man. Point blank, dude. With an assault rifle. Oh, my God. Yeah, you guys know that knee to the back of the neck? That's an IOF. That's a Israeli Mossad tactic right there, guys. And that's what they're doing here. Man, just dragging people around, man. Bloodied, bruised, beaten up. It's crazy, man. So just don't forget. Oh, this is a good one here. This is an excellent one. Check this out. How come I have no audio coming through my stupid thing here? Let me see. How do I get audio coming? Capture desktop audio. Let me try this.
And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and
There you go.
crack
Check
down on
this out.
fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough.
Let's watch.
Fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Kamala Harris, I quote, I am California's top cop when she was Attorney General of California. In District Attorney of San Francisco, she did everything to lock up poor black and brown people. So, guys, she's not the better option. She never was. Why would you vote for somebody that's pro-cop, dude? You don't care about police brutality. You don't care about mass incarceration. I think that's about it for the news headlines today, guys. Let me see. Let's pause on that for a second. I got plenty more where that came from. I just wanted to stop there. All right, let's get set up for a book reading, guys. Let me get set up. So, today, guys, check it out. Got a couple of books to read. Boom. Got one about the mass incarceration, the prison system. I've got one called Marks at the Arcade. So let's start. Let me get some water. Let me use the bathroom. Give me 1 second. Hola. Hola. All right, you guys getting set up here for the. How we doing today, guys? Everyone happy? Feeling good? How we doing? All right, I think I'm ready for the book reading. Check it out. All right. All right, guys. This is going to be the book reading section for today. We've got a Cookie over here. Fortunately, you can't see her face. Her back's turned. It's too bad. All right. Well, the first book I want to read for today's stream here, or the book reading stream, is The Warehouse, a visual primer on mass incarceration by James Kilgore, and Vic Lu. I think Vic Lu's the illustrator. And I've read a bit of this, but I want to read it with y'all so we can discuss what's going on here. So there's no introduction. It just kind of gets right into it. So let's start with part 1, titled The Big Picture. This is a quote by Angela Davis. It says, "All over the world, the institution of the prison serves as a place to warehouse people who represent major social problems. Prison serves as an institution that consolidates the state's inability and refusal to address the most pressing social problems of this era." End quote. All right. So it kind of starts here. The U.S. has built the largest system of incarceration in human history. Let's get some statistics going here. The U.S. incarcerates more people than any other country, incarcerating roughly 20% of the entire global prison population. By contrast, the U.S. population is only 4% of the global population. The U.S. incarcerates 5 times more people than proportionate to its population. As of 2022, this system held 1.9 million people in a total of 1,833 state prisons, 110 federal prisons, 1,772 juvenile detention facilities, 3,134 local jails, 218 immigration detention facilities, and 80 Indian country jails. By comparison, in 1980, the combined prison and jail population was just over 500,000. All right, let's see. Let's see here. Page 4. Who are the incarcerated? The burden of incarceration does not hit the entire population evenly. Overall, people from low-income families are the most likely to be incarcerated. But even within that population, there are serious racial differences. Overall, black people are far more likely than anyone else to be incarcerated. People of color. In 2019, black people were incarcerated at the rate of 1,240 per 100,000. The rate for Latino people was 349. For white people was 261. However, the rate for Latino people was artificially low because many prison and jail systems classify some Latino people as white. For the same reason, the official white incarceration rate is artificially high. Wisconsin has the highest incarceration rate of black people. 1 black person out of 36 is behind bars in Wisconsin, as compared to 1 black person in 214 in Massachusetts. In 7 states, black people are at least 9 times more likely to be incarcerated than whites: California, Connecticut, Iowa, Maine, Minnesota, New Jersey, Wisconsin. And then get a little... Compared to white people, black people are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated. Native people are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated. Latinx people are 2 times more likely to be incarcerated. Between 1980 and 2019, the population incarcerated in women's facilities grew by more than 7 times. LGBTQ plus people. LGBTQ people are also disproportionately incarcerated. Though the criminal legal system does not keep very accurate data on LGBTQ folks, one study estimated that there were 4,890 transgender people living in state prisons across the U.S. Typically, these individuals are housed according to the sex assigned to them at birth, not according to their lived gender. Out of those 4,890 transgender people, the study could only confirm 15 cases where people were housed according to their lived gender. LGBTQ folks are incarcerated at 3 times the rate of cisgender people. Next, nearly 2 in 5 people in prison have at least one disability. Population of women's prisons. The burdens of mass incarceration are apportioned according to gender as well as race. While the vast majority of people in prisons and jails are in men's facilities, about 93%. The populations of women's prisons have grown faster than men's facilities. Although people who identify as women are incarcerated at a lower rate, the absence of men in households and communities shifts a host of tasks onto the folks who are left behind. In the majority of instances, this means mothers, sisters, spouses, girlfriends, or grandmothers who take on increased responsibility for financial and emotional support for the family, childcare, and driving and car maintenance, as well as having to provide financial and emotional support to the person who is incarcerated. LGBTQ people are incarcerated at a rate 3 times higher than the general population. Did I say that already? I don't know. I think I did. Sorry. All right. People with disabilities. People categorized as disabled are disproportionately incarcerated. For example, nearly 4 in 10 individuals in state prisons, and 3 in 10 in the federal system are listed as having a disability. The Bureau of Justice Statistics reports that fully 1 in 5 people in prison have a serious mental illness. A quarter of individuals incarcerated in state prisons reported having a cognitive disability. 12% have an ambulatory disability, 10% a hearing disability, and 12% are visually challenged. Yet most prisons and jails offer few, if any, accommodations for people with disabilities. Even basic services like sign language interpretation, tables with wheelchair access, hearing aids, and books that are accessible for blind people are more often than not absent. Here's a nice graphic, guys. In 1972, less than 338,000 people were incarcerated in the United States. Just to kind of get you see how clear it is in there? Each silhouette represents 1,000 people incarcerated in the U.S., as you can see there. And then let's look at the next page here. Take a look at that. Boom. What does it say? By 2021, more than 1,774,000 people were incarcerated in the U.S. I mean, that's crazy, man. Look at that. Each one represents 1,000. Okay? And look at this next. This is just insane, dude. This is the United States of America, baby. So let's go to the next page. It says, Why the Prison Boom? That's the next little title there. This boom of incarceration began to spike in the 1980s and continued uninterrupted until 2010, when it began a slow decline. Many factors contributed to this enormous expansion. The boom varied geographically, but during that period, every single state experienced a significant growth in its prison and jail population. The most important reason behind the prison boom was a change in the philosophy of how to solve social problems. Sparked by a resurgence in racism during the 1970s, federal, state, and local governments turned to incarceration and policing to solve social problems like housing shortages, substance use issues, unemployment, immigration, and family conflict. Once the boom took off, those who benefited from this expansion continued to press for more prisons. This included police, prison staff, and elected officials who voted to build prisons to provide jobs for their constituencies. In addition, many businesses benefited from prison expansion, including architectural firms and construction companies that won contracts to build new facilities. In 1984, there were 903 state prisons. By 1990, the number had risen to 1,207, an increase of 34%. California led the increase in new prison builds, growing from 30 prisons in 84 to 100 in 1990. These cost the taxpayer dearly. According to a study by the Office of the Inspector General, the federal government built 13 new prisons between 85 and 2000, at an average cost of $120 million each. At the same time, according to a Sentencing Project report, during the 1990s, crime was falling. From 91 to 98, violent crime fell by 25%, and crime overall declined by 22%. Yet the construction of prisons and jails continued. By 2021, the U.S. had more than 1,500 state prisons, over 2,800 local jails, plus 1,510 juvenile correctional facilities, 186 immigration prisons, 102 federal prisons, and 82 Indian country jails. A 2017 report by the Prison Policy Initiative estimated the cost of mass incarceration at $182 billion, with $80.7 billion, oh my God, sorry, yawning, going to prisons, jails, probation, and parole. So, but here are like the years, guys. So it's like 1968 to 2018. So I'll let you see that. These are the years. Look at this. It just goes up. So we're at 1.7 million people in prison. So let's continue. Let's go with economic reasons. In her renowned book, Golden Gulag, Ruth Wilson Gilmore linked the rise of mass incarceration to economic crisis. She argued that falling corporate profit rates prompted the U.S. government to reduce corporate taxes. The falling tax levels meant less revenue for the government, which then triggered reductions in government spending on social services like food stamps, which is now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, public housing, and other forms of social welfare. As the crime levels rose, budgets for social services shifted into law enforcement, including prison and jail construction. Many elected officials also joined in the call for tough on-crime measures, ways to lock them up and throw away the key. Moreover, once prison and jail building began to expand, the carceral system built up an economic following of its own, hundreds of thousands of individuals who depended on it for their livelihood. Police and prison guards unions such as the Police Benevolent Association of New York and the California Correctional and Police Officers Association began to flex their financial muscle by making large donations to the electoral campaigns of candidates who supported prison building. Doubling, quote, this is from President Richard Nixon, quote, doubling the conviction rate in this country would do more to cure crime in America than quadrupling the funds for war on poverty, close quote. Piece of shit. They include a little photo of some rich white folks building a prison. Here's a footnote. Groundbreaking of prison in Stanislaus County. One of the newest prison projects in California begins as mass incarceration continues to expand. Note the green tarp to protect their shoes for the photo shoot. You can kind of see it in that photo, guys. See that? Pieces of shit. All right. And then let's see. So to recap, guys, in the late 60s and 70s, there were a few major recessions. Corporate profits fell. The U.S. government cut corporate taxes to aid in economic recovery. The U.S. government received less tax revenue. The U.S. government reduced spending on social services. These included food stamps, public housing, and other forms of social welfare. Crime levels rose. Then the U.S. built more prisons. Instead of re-increasing budgets for social services, governments instead increased budgets for law enforcement, including prison and jail construction. That's what it's about right there. All right, next page. This is titled Philosophical Reasons. The rise of mass incarceration coincided with the philosophical shift in analyzing the root causes of crime. The social justice movements of the 60s and 70s had framed crime as a result of structural issues, particularly poverty and inequality. In this vein, prisons and supervision were viewed as areas of rehabilitation and personal development, Resources in prisons included education programs and job training. But in the 1980s, the philosophical pendulum began to swing in the other direction. Crime was viewed as a result of personal flaws and failure. The cure was no longer to provide support and rehabilitation to people, but to punish them, to teach them a lesson by denying their freedom. One of the most powerful indicators of the demise of rehabilitation was the demise of education programs. In 1979, 41% of all people incarcerated in state prisons were enrolled in some type of education. By 1995, the figure had fallen to 22%. Similarly, higher education fell away. In 1993, there were more than 350 college education programs in prisons. Financing for most of the students came via federal Pell Grants. But in 1993, Congress voted to eliminate these grants. As a result, by 2005, there were only a dozen college in-prison programs still operating. Damn. How sad is that, man? You can thank Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill as well, guys. Quite possibly the most pro-cop president in history. He is to blame, so. And let's see here. What's the next one I want to read? So it kind of recaps at the bottom there. Rehabilitation, punishment. Let's read it real quick. So recap, before the 1980s, it was about rehabilitation. Crime is believed to be caused by structural issues like poverty, racism, and inequality. Prisons exist to rehabilitate and foster personal development. And then after the 1980s, it went from rehab to punishment. Crime is believed to be caused by personal flaws and failure. Prisons exist to punish or teach people a lesson. So just to recap that part right there. Here's a quote by Angela Davis. Imprisonment has become the response of first resort to far too many of the social problems that burden people who are ensconced in poverty. These problems often are veiled by being conveniently grouped together under the category crime and by the automatic attribution of criminal behavior to people of color. Homelessness, unemployment, drug addiction, mental illness, and illiteracy are only a few of the problems that disappear from public view when the human beings contending with them are relegated to cages. Prisons thus perform a feat of magic, or rather, the people who continually vote in new prison bonds and tactically assent to a proliferating network of prisons and jails have been tricked into believing in the magic of imprisonment. But prisons do not disappear problems, they disappear human beings. Close quote. All right, next page is this topic is changes in sentencing. Sentencing depends on how the prosecutor charges the crime rather than judicial discretion. One of the most important factors that has sparked the increase in the number of people incarcerated in the U.S. has been changes in sentencing laws. Before the 1980s, most courts practiced indeterminate sentencing. Under this system, the judge had lots of discretion in deciding a person's fate. For example, in some states, the law might specify that a person convicted of selling drugs could receive a sentence of 0 to 15 years. The judge can then sentence the person under the law to anywhere from no prison time to a maximum of 15 years. Moreover, once a person was sent to prison, they could earn good time. For example, under the federal system before mass incarceration, a person would have to serve 1/3 of their sentence before becoming eligible for parole. If they had completed that 1/3 of their sentence, they would go before a parole board who would decide if they merited release. If they had avoided disciplinary write-ups, maintained a job in the prison, and had a clear-cut plan for parole, they could be released. If they had not shown good behavior, they would be sent back into the prison and reviewed again a year or two later. Hence, there was an incentive for them to follow the prison program. Mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimums made the system more punitive. Under mandatory minimums, the judges lost most of their power to determine sentences. Sentences for specific crimes were prescribed with very little leeway for judges to take an individual's life circumstances or background into account. For example, under the federal system, a person convicted of selling 28 grams of cocaine, about 1 ounce, had to be given a minimum of 5 years in prison, regardless of the person's criminal history, personal circumstances, or actual role in the sale. This shifted the power in sentencing from judges to prosecutors. The outcome of an individual's case depended more on what changes were pressed against them than a judge's case-by-case evaluation of a person. And the new sentencing laws made penalties much stiffer, especially in drug-related cases. All right, the next page. Here's something that was in the news. Hamda Hassan was 21 years old when she fled her abusive relationship and stayed with her cousin. Her cousin was involved in selling crack cocaine, and she agreed to help him by running some errands and transferring money. Even though Hamda was pregnant, nonviolent, a survivor of abuse, a single mother of 2 young daughters, and had a clean record, because she helped wire money and ran errands for her cousin, she was sentenced to life in prison. Quote from the judge, "It is my strongly felt opinion that neither T. Lomax or S. Lomax, which is Hamda Hassan, ought to spend the rest of their days in prison. However, I have not yet found a principled basis for imposing a lesser sentences under the guidelines." End quote from Richard G. Kopp, the presiding judge, referring to Hamda by her given name, Stephanie Lomax. That's horrible, man. That's just a terrible... What a horrible story. I'm going to have to Google that name and see where this person's at. All right, let's read a few more pages of this book, and then we'll start the next book, which is about video games. The Three Strikes Law, page 20. Another key element of harsh sentencing was the Three Strikes Law. Under this legislation, a person who committed 3 violent felonies, each one called a strike, would face an automatic sentence of life imprisonment without parole. In some states, people were struck out for relatively minor offenses. In Washington State, a group of prosecutors sent an open letter to voters in opposition to Three Strikes laws. They gave this example, quote, "An 18-year-old high school senior pushes a classmate down to steal his Michael Jordan $150 sneakers. Strike 1. He gets out of jail and shoplifts a jacket from the Bon Marche, pushing aside the clerk as he runs out of the store. Strike 2. He gets out of jail, straightens out, and 9 years later gets in a fight in a bar and intentionally hits someone, breaking his nose. Criminal behavior to be sure, but hardly the crime of the century. Yet it is strike 3. He is sent to prison for the rest of his life." End quote. And then it has a little graphic here with a footnote. Let's read that. Gary Ewing's 3 strikes. The Supreme Court upheld the decision to sentence Ewing to 25 years to life under the 3 strikes law for stealing 3 golf clubs, on top of previous felony crimes that included armed robbery. Guys, where's the white collar crime? Why isn't Obama, Bush, both Bushes, Trump, why aren't they in prison? Like, where are the laws for the rich people, you know? That's what this book's going to get down under. All those war crimes, man, all those limbs being blown off, children, men, women, and children being blown to bits. All the war crimes, guys. Where are the people in the Pentagon being held accountable? Anyways, next page. Truth in sentencing. In the late 1970s, most states and the federal government moved away from indeterminate sentences to truth in sentencing, along with mandatory minimums. Under truth in sentencing, a person could not reduce their sentence through good behavior. They would receive a sentence for a stipulated period of time and be compelled to serve a designated percentage of that time. For example, they might be given a 10-year sentence at 50%, which will mean 5 years, or that same 10-year sentence at 100%, meaning they would have to serve all 10 years before release regardless of their behavior. The release date would not be set by the parole board, but at the time of sentencing. Okay, and then the next bullet point says racial disparity and sentencing changes. According to the Sentencing Project in 2018, 48% of those serving life or virtual life sentences were black. A virtual life sentence is a number of years that exceed the life expectancy of the individual. Next bullet point, progressive prosecutors as pushback. One form of pushback against this was the move to elect progressive prosecutors, individuals who back criminal justice reform and would therefore change the way in which people were charged. Several cities elected progressive prosecutors. Likely the two most well-known were Larry Krasner in Philly and Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. Krasner was elected in 2017, Boudin in 2019. Both campaigned on programs targeted at reducing jail populations by reducing drug arrests and ending cash bail. However, both faced massive backlash from police unions and corporate supporters of law and order approach. As a result, both faced legal proceedings against them. Boudin was removed from office via a recall vote in 2022, and Krasner was impeached in the same year for alleged corruption. I'd really like to know if he was corrupt or not. I doubt it. All right, let's read a couple more pages. Ooh, this one looks pretty long, actually. Damn. I don't know if my throat can handle this. Fuck it. Let's man up and do it, okay? All right. The next bullet point is political reasons. Let me drink some water. All right. Page 22. The social movements of the 1960s and 1970s, the black liberation and civil rights struggles, the anti-war movement, women's and gay liberation movements created a wave of fear among the white middle class population, who felt their security and political power was under threat. Politicians like Presidents Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan played on this fear by exaggerating the realities of crime. In her famous book, The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander spelled out how the advances of the anti-racist movements had made it difficult for politicians to promote an overtly racist agenda that explicitly blamed black people for the wave of crime. Instead, Alexander contended that conservatives used terms like criminal and predator as a suggestive way of referring to black people. These factors were so powerful that every U.S. president from Nixon onward adopted the principles of mass incarceration and punishment. Guys, Hillary Clinton, she called black people super predators. We got to get these super predators off the street. Liberals ate that shit up, man. It's ridiculous. All right, 1969 to 1974, the Nixon presidency. President Richard Nixon's 1971 speech is typically categorized as the starting point of the war on drugs, despite the fact that at the time the U.S. had over 300,000 troops still fighting in Southeast Asia. Nixon declared drugs as the country's most important enemy. Nixon went on to create the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, in 1973. This agency is a special branch of law enforcement committed to targeting illegal drug use and smuggling in the United States. At the start, the DEA was given 1,470 special agents and a budget of less than $75 million. Today, the agency has nearly 5,000 agents and a budget of $2.03 billion. The war on drugs also brought harsher sentencing laws. Most notorious was mandatory minimums, which set fixed penalties for specific crimes, giving judges little or no leeway to adjust a sentence depending on a person's circumstances or family responsibilities. Ulterior motives behind the war on drugs. In a 1994 interview, Nixon's domestic policy chief, John Ehrlichman, explained that the Nixon campaign had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people, Quote, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Do we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Close quote. Damn. When Nixon resigned from the presidency in 1973, the war on drugs lost momentum, but it didn't die. Can you believe that guy? I'm going to clip that and post. That's just crazy. All right, 1981 to 1989, the Reagan presidency. Ronald Reagan reiterated Nixon's mantra, labeling drugs as the number one public enemy in the U.S., despite the fact that Gallup polls showed only 2% of the population categorized drugs as a top domestic issue. Along with his wife, Nancy Reagan, he launched the Just Say No campaign. The First Lady made more than 250 public appearances, often meeting with school pupils and sympathetic members of the public and urging them to just say no to drugs. Over 10,000 Just Say No clubs were established in schools. Michael Jackson joined the effort, creating a song about drugs to the tune of his hit Beat It. LA Police Chief Daryl Gates, who argued that casual drug users should be taken out and shot, founded the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, DARE. He said that? He said that? I'm going to Google that. LA Police Chief Daryl Gates. That's wild, dude. I believe it. Okay, DARE, which encouraged children to inform the police if they knew of anyone who used drugs, including their own parents. Fucking rats, snitches. According to DARE, the 3 R's meant recognize, resist, report. Ugh. With the war on drugs came the militarization of police, the foot soldiers in the battle. Across the country, special weapons and tactical teams emerged. Police armed themselves with automatic weapons, tanks, and helicopters. Prison population soared from 330,000 in 1980 to over 603,000 by the end of Reagan's presidency. The war on drugs was the key laboratory for applying mandatory minimum sentences. Perhaps the most notorious sentencing measure was the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which put in place harsh mandatory minimums for drug offenses. The most notorious of these penalties was the racist policy in regard to cocaine. The penalties for an ounce of crack cocaine, largely used by black people, was the same as the penalty for 100 ounces of powder cocaine, more frequently used by white people. The late black commentator Glenn Ford described this as a model of, quote, of efficiency in the destruction of black lives, end quote. These inequalities would only be reduced but not eliminated in 2011. Here's a Ronald Reagan quote. I now have absolute proof that smoking even one marijuana cigarette is equal in brain damage to being on Bikini Island during an H-bomb blast. Close quote. God, I'm just sick of this bullshit. There you go. There's like a little artwork there. Oh, God. Here we go, guys. 1989 to 1993. The Bush senior presidency. Oh, boy. In George H.W. Bush's first presidential address from the Oval Office in 1989, he held up a bag of what he said was innocent looking as candy, but it's turning our cities into battle zones, close quote. It was cracks of crack cocaine that he claimed had been seized during an arrest in Lafayette Park, which is adjacent to the White House. He called drugs, quote, the greatest domestic threat facing our nation today, close quote. Though drug use had declined by the time Bush Sr. came into office, he amped up the war on drugs again, spending $45 billion to reinvigorate drug law enforcement, more than the previous 4 presidents combined. His actions included the 1033 program, which delivered military vehicles and hardware to local police departments. Bush Sr. also internationalized the war on drugs moving the U.S. military in to fight drug lords in Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru. By the end of his presidency, the Pentagon's counter-narcotics budget had increased by over 100,000%, and the population in prisons in the U.S. had risen from 631,990 in 1988 to 888,593 in 1992. This was an overall increase of 182% over the figure at the outset of the Reagan administration in 1980. Damn. And there's him holding up the bag of drugs there. All right, almost done. 1993 to 2001. The Clinton presidency. The 1986 anti-drug abuse bill and the enormous expansion of the prison populations had done little to reduce crime rates by the time Bill Clinton took office in 1992. Bipartisan support was mounting for yet another round of punitive legislation. Democrats like Senator Joe Biden and Republicans like Strom Thurmond were walking hand in hand when it came to expanding the power of police and building more prisons. Even a significant cohort of black political leaders backed the bill, including the majority of the Congressional Black Caucus. Bill Clinton rode this bipartisan anti-crime wave and became the champion of lock 'em up and throw away the key. In his words, gangs and drugs have taken over our streets and undermined our schools, close quote. This enthusiasm for punishment combined with budgetary allocations sparked the greatest expansions of prisons in U.S. history. From 1990 to 2005, the number of prisons rose by 43%. The prison population expanded during Clinton's years in office from just under 900,000 to more than 1.3 million. Racialized drug prosecutions fueled much of this. From 1991 to 2001, 9 times as many black people as white people went to federal prison for crack offenses. Black people's sentences for crack were double that for white crack offenders in federal court during that period, 148 months compared to 84 months. The 1994 Crime Act, the most racist crime bill in history by a Democrat, officially known as the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, the Crime Act was likely the most far-reaching punitive bill of the era of mass incarceration. It included $12.5 billion for new state prisons. To receive a portion of these funds, a state government had to pass harsh truth in sentencing laws. The bill also authorized the death penalty for 60 new federal offenses and imposed mandatory life sentences for people with 3 or more felonies of a certain type. In addition, harsher penalties were applied to youth who broke the law. The group the president's wife, Hillary, had referred to as super predators. Historian Elizabeth Hinton argued that President Clinton's Law and Order campaign was done with full awareness of the racial implications. She wrote that, quote, the Clinton administration knew that the criminal justice system was deeply unfair and biased against African Americans and chose to expand that system, close quote. After the Republicans seized control of Congress in the historic 1994 midterm elections, the Clinton White House sought to double down on its law and order image in advance of the 1996 presidential race. In the short term, it was a winning political strategy for Clinton. In the long term, it would help pave the way to one of the worst laws of his presidency. Increase in immigration criminalization. Clinton's law and order crusade did not stop at the criminal legal system. Under his watch, repression of immigrants also heightened. The Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996 put in place the administrative machinery to step up deportation and reduce the pathways for immigrants to attain citizenship. It also made anyone with a felony conviction subject to deportation, even if the felony occurred before the bill was passed. Deportations escalated. From 1992 to 2000, deportations to Mexico more than quadrupled. As the century drew to a close, the U.S. was cementing itself in the position of the world's largest incarcerator, with black people being the primary targets of the systematic repression. But while the prison population was steadily rising, crime levels showed contradictory patterns. According to the Brennan Center think tank, crime hit an all-time high in 1991 and then began a general decline. However, while all states increased their prison populations, during this period, the impact on crime varied. In cities such as New York and Portland, Oregon, the overall crime rate, the murder rate, and the violent crime rate fell dramatically from 1990 to 2010. By contrast, Philadelphia had a fluctuating incidence of murder and violent crime during that period. Here's a quote from Joe Biden in 1993, quote, "Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscious developing, they will become the predators 15 years from now." Close quote. Another piece of shit. Well, guys, my voice is giving out. I'm going to take a break here. Taking a break. All right, well, I got up to page 29. We're going to read about the George W. Bush presidency, Obama, Trump, and then after that is about immigrants and more, guys. So thank you for listening to the first part of The Warehouse, a visual primer on mass incarceration. That was part one of the stream or video, so I'm going to chop this up and put it to YouTube. So there you go. Oh, boy. Oh, shit. Oh. Got a little shrimp there. Got a shrimp. Cookie is sleeping back there. All right, guys, I think I'm done for today's stream. I was going to read a video game book, but I need to take a break, so I think I'm going to start doing streams Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. But I need to get some video games in, so I'm going to stream, I think Neo is what I'm going to be playing. Yeah, I'm going to play Neo later tonight on stream, guys. So thank you for watching. I did a movie stream, some news headlines, and a book reading. I'm happy about it. So, all right, let me close out of that. But thank you guys for watching. And if you want to watch me play games later today, Monday evening, let me know.